AJ Vaynerchuk, good friend of the show, and we always appreciate his time. He's the co-founder of Vayner Sports, and I've been wanting to have this conversation all week because this is, to me, as fascinating a question as any. You're a sports agent, and you're in the most, especially in the NFL, the most important part of the year is
right now
free agency, and nobody can get together. So AJ is good enough to jump aboard with us here. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, guys. How about yourself?
Great. Let me just start with that very open-ended, obvious question. What has this week been like for you not being able to be face-to-face with clients and NFL teams?
It's been surreal, I would say. I think the early part of the week, every time I got on the phone during once the legal tampering period opened up on Monday, the first few minutes of conversation with every team I touched base with was kind of, man, like, can't believe we're actually doing this. I think a lot of folks on the agent side, the team side, the player side thought that maybe the NFL would delay the start of free agency, push back the calendar, but they went ahead and pushed forward, and it's been unique, to say the least.
What is a normal week like during this time? Because this is usually, right, we see free agents go make visits at different stops. So what's it normally like?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's to what you just described. I think there's a certain subset of players that have the opportunity to take visits, and so that is obviously off the table. And then I think probably another aspect that just made this week nutty with everything going on with coronavirus is not only is free agency being impacted, but the pre-draft process for the NFL draft, I would say, is being maybe impacted even more so. The vast majority of pro days have been canceled. And so there's a scramble to figure out, is it the college doing a private pro day where, nobody's allowed, no scouts are allowed, none of that, and they're just filming it and sending it to teams? Is it a trainer in conjunction with a former NFL scout to serve as credibility, measuring the 40-yard dash, measuring the 40-inch, measuring the vertical, et cetera? Teams have something called 30 visits, where they're allowed to bring in 30 draft-eligible players to headquarters and host them for an extended visit. All those are canceled, and so instead of those, we're setting up FaceTimes and Skypes. And so it's just been really crazy, both on the pro side and the pre-draft side.
To that last point, AJ, and that's actually a really interesting one for me, because when you're dealing with the players and talking about preparing for something that you've literally been trying to achieve your entire life, right? Since these guys were 5 years old, they've wanted to put on an NFL uniform. It gets to the most important part or exhibition for their careers with the combine, the pro days. You're talking about all these things, and this time, which is so exciting. What's their thoughts? How do the players feel, I guess, as a whole? Is it a nervous, kind of a scared feeling that they may not achieve what they're trying to do, or is there more of a positive vibe, and who helps them with that?
Yeah, I don't think, at least for me, we've got 13 different guys in this draft class. The thing that's unique is that you really got to put in two different groups. You have to put in the guys that were invited to the combine and the guys that weren't, right? So we had 7 guys at the combine, 6 that were not. So for the combine guys, they obviously have a leg up in the pre-draft process because they've had a lot more exposure to the team. The medical side, when you go to the combine, that's a huge part of it. Going to the hospital and taking a bunch of MRIs and having all these team doctors poke and prod. And then obviously the testing and the interviews. And so for those guys, obviously pro day would have been nice and would have been an opportunity for them to improve upon maybe some things they wanted to improve upon. But I wouldn't say it was dire or necessary. And just being invited to the combine in itself shows that you're firmly on those NFL radars for the draft. And then the non-combine guys, that's more where I wouldn't say anybody's panicked or upset. Everybody's just kind of dealing with the reality of it. But it's really focusing on what do we need to do between now and the draft to ensure that we get their brand out there. And when I say brand, not from a social media following or anything like that, but I mean to the draft evaluators.
Could this work out good for some guys? Like Rico Gathers, for instance, or somebody doesn't have a whole lot of film, but their measurables are great. Long arms, can run, can jump, all those things. But on-field stuff, there's just not a lot there.
Yeah, I think there probably is a subset that would benefit from this. I would say, in some instances, if somebody doesn't, I would actually say it's the other way, where if somebody has some really great film and they're a really good football player, but maybe are not the most athletically gifted, less exposure on the athletic testing is probably a good thing, and let their tape sing more.
AJ Vaynerchuk is with us, co-founder of Vayner Sports. He's on Twitter, Instagram at AJV. Give him a follow. You can learn more about Vayner Sports at Vaynersports.net, Vaynersports.net. Who do you think, AJ, is most impacted come draft by the not having the pro days? Like, who is going to feel that the most negatively?
Well, if you think about it, pro day is an opportunity for guys to be discovered. So great example. I don't represent him, but I saw this story talked about Austin Eckler. He just signed a big contract,
Sure.
And he was somebody that was completely discovered at pro day. I mean, as the story goes, scouts did not have him on the radar at all. He was super small, went to a super small school. I believe he crashed one of the Colorado-based pro days. I don't know if it was Colorado or Colorado State. And it was after the main team guys did all their workouts, and even some scouts had left. And then Austin Eckler went out there, ran a fast 40, had a huge vertical, great broad, and one of the Chargers' local scouts, made sure to write down his name, and they made sure to send him an offer as an undrafted free agent. Years later, he cashes in on a big deal, right?
Wow.
So one of my clients, a guy named Foye Oluokun, who's a starting linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons, he went to Yale, and he was somebody that ran super fast in the 4.4s at his pro day and went ahead and became a 6th-round pick because of it. So I would say there's guys that are late-round draft picks in previous years and undrafted free agents that heavily relied on pro day to impress from a physical standpoint, right? Both Austin Eckler and Foye just had great physical measurables that popped off in person. And this year's Austin Eckler and Foye Oluokun don't have that opportunity.
Are you under the assumption that we're going to have a season that starts on time?
I'm optimistic that that's what's going to happen, but I'm not a health expert.
Right.
I don't think that it would be fair, assuming the best that I could do. But I like to have some optimism. I feel like every day that goes by, our country's taking it more and more seriously, and I think that's the road towards getting this solved as quick as possible. And looking at some of the data overseas of some of these countries that have plateaued gives me some hope that, I think September is enough time for us to get this thing right.
We've talked about, and last thing for you, we've talked here a good bit about what Major League Baseball is facing potentially. What about if this is obviously somewhere your brain has to have gone just to think about it for your clients. What if the NFL season is delayed? What does that mean for NFL players?
Yeah, it's funny. As drastic of a situation this is and how unforeseen it is, NFL players have strangely had a little bit of preparation for something like this because, the CBA just got passed, but there's been a lot of discussion over the last, 2 years of get ready for a work stoppage, get ready for a work stoppage, get ready for a work stoppage. Save a percentage of your check. Know that 2021 season may not start on time. So even though this is a year earlier than that potential work stoppage, I had numerous conversations over the last 2 years with my clients of like, hey, you need to be ready for the potential that there's no paychecks and there's no football come September 2021. And so, yes, this is a year faster than that, but I feel like football players are in a unique position where they've been talking about this collective bargaining agreement and the potential for a work stoppage for quite some time. So I think that football players and hopefully their agents would be well equipped for handling something like that.
It's a really good perspective, man. I'm glad I asked the question because I had not considered that. But that is, that's a great perspective that I figured you'd have. AJ Vaynerchuk, Vayner Sports, Vaynersports.net to learn more. He's on Twitter and Instagram at AJV, 3 letters, at AJV. Y'all go give him a follow. Hey, man, appreciate it. Best to you and your family. Stay safe, all right?
Thanks, Matt. You too. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yep, see you.